filmmaking is not just about, oh, this is the story I want to tell. There's a lot of jugaad. You have to make things happen. How am I going to get the money? How am I going to get the actors? How am I going to pitch this there? This, like, so you can't be like, I'm not interested in this part of it. You have to figure out how are you going to set up your projects, who's going to fund it, who's the greatest filmmakers are there because they figured out a way to get funding and to get their films out.
If the script is engaging, then, the politics of it, you'll find people aligned to the film's politics. The storytelling sort of transcends those barriers.
I spoke to Anubhav sir about it, about the whole marketing, and I was very nervous about it. I was like, it shouldn't feel like one social campaign. It's at the end of the day a movie. So he was very convinced about it. He was like, see, Mrunmayee, for this particular movie, this is how I want to go about it because I really believe that the message is bigger.
A moral pursuit cannot guarantee you commercial gain, or I feel it's difficult to do so. In my own thing, I think I've always attached to producers who are fairly inclusive in their own thought process. For me, it's very difficult to go to a producer who's just saying that, teko jo karna hai kar le. No, but I want you to believe in me. Because it is not just my vision, it's also your vision as a producer who's funding it.
The people who backed the film also backed this film called The Accidental Prime Minister. Okay, so these are people whose politics were actually completely opposite of Shahid Azmi's or my own politics. Okay, and it was lesson in coexistence. What did I do to sell it? They heard the story resonated. They heard it as a film, not as a political statement. So, this is something I always tell people, that first find that story, think like a filmmaker before you think like an activist.
So from 2004, Dhanush had put me on to around some 15 producers, out of which 7 producers paid me in advance. And I used to sit in an office, discuss for 2 months, and they will say, okay, this guy is going to spend more money. I don't want to invest in him. So I will be on the streets again. After that, 5 producers, within over a period of 1.5 years, kept changing. They'll pay the advance, then they'll shoot for they'll do a photo shoot, and then this guy spent more money and he's arrogant. We don't want him. Then again, back to square one. Then when Visarane happened, I was able to achieve because of keeping the budget under control and having people who were ready to give up on whatever comforts that they were able to make through being part of a film, so that this film could be made. And a producer who just went by whatever that I said, and he just wanted to make sure that I made a film.
There was a lot of despair. The film took 11 months to make. We would shoot for 3 days, raise money, then do the next schedule. So we would raise 3 lakhs, 2 lakhs. So it was made that way. The final schedule was made with my father-in-law's money. So he saw me very low, and so he said, I have a fixed deposit of 12 lakhs, you can take it. So he gave me that, he broke his FD, gave me that money, and I finished the film. And then I still had 3 days left. And I borrowed money from somebody at 7% per month to finish the last 3 days.
I myself get inspired by her is Reema Das. She is someone, and I tell everybody that today you don't have an excuse for not making a film. Look at her. She came to Bombay to be an actor. Okay, she recently told me, you didn't give me a role, I had approached you. I said, good, you became a director. So she, 10 years, tried doing all that, and then realized that maybe her calling is making films. And she trained herself to watch world cinema, because she was clear that that's how she can, so it's very important to know yourself, know what is it that is your strength. You need to know your desire, what you really want, accept them, be as honest to yourself as possible. And then today you can make a film with a 5. She shot the film, directed the film, edited the film. It was a 5-member team. which made Village Rockstar, which was India's entry to Oscars. After that, she made this film, another film, which also she did everything, called Bulbul Can Sing, which was at Cannes, which was at Berlin, which was everywhere.
I mean, you'll find people aligned to the film's politics. Two things: the story, just even today, he's very, very proud of the film. The producer it's got pride of place in his office, everything. So he's proud of the film, and his politics are completely opposite. So it was also, it showed you that, storytelling sort of transcends those barriers.
The system now is very, very different. When we all started working, it was a very more traditional system where you assisted a filmmaker for many years. And then that filmmaker, somehow helped you to make your own films, which is how it happened with me. I assisted Mr. Prakash Jha for many, many years. I worked with him, as an associate director, also as an executive producer for films he was producing. And then he kind of produced my first two films. So, and that was a lot of how things were happening when we had actually started working. And now, of course, it's not like that because there are many more avenues. You don't need to assist for so many years. And, everyone's much more open. So I don't think there's any way of doing it is except just being at it. You write your film, or whether you're, directing it, somebody else has written it, whatever, you have to just go pitch it. You pitch it to studios, to production houses, to the streamers, and you just be at it. I think now there's a really great space for short films. So having if you made a short film, then it's a really good way of pitching. If it's your first feature, then you can be like, okay, I've done this short.
I mean, you also must be aware of the kind of industry we come from. Unless you have a big star, or unless it's perceived as populist, no one wants to finance them. When I at one point got so frustrated, I said, I don't care. I'll just try and do it through crowdfunding. I didn't know if it would happen. I didn't know that so many people would trust me. And, we raised nearly over 1 crore, and that's till now, I think, the largest crowdfunded film in India, properly through social media. I felt the empowering process started there from the first email that I received, which was from a student in Pune. And he told me that I'm sending you 2,000 rupees. I don't want you to use my name because I can't be open about the fact that I was sexually abused. Just credit D. For me, you are telling my story and this will empower me.
In India, the problem is there's no proper funding for independent cinema. So eventually you have to go to the same studios to help you release the film. You're going to the same people for funding. Unlike, America still has some, independent funding, and Europe has a proper system where there is the government funds and all of that. So India, earlier at least there was NFDC and all, and now that has also really petered out. It's not really there. So there is no systematic way of, getting those films made. The ecosystem is different, in India, and now even independent films, because you have to compete in the same place. So then it becomes Newton also has to compete with the Baghi. So it's complicated. So I think I feel there should be more institutional support for smaller independent films which are more free thinking.
I believe filmmakers should stay away from marketing. We should not be attempting to make trailers because we make works of art. We should not be making posters because we want to make paintings. It's best left to the experts. You can respond to it. If it completely misrepresents your film, you have every right. You should reserve the right to reject it. But listen to people who have experienced on these things.
For me, a promo of the movie is something that needs to be engaging. Now, how you choose to be engaging, are you going to engage me through the entertainment quotient? Are you going to engage me through the argument that you're making? That's important.
it happens so many times to a lot of films where the trailer seems to promise something which the film is not, and in so many cases this sort of backfires. Having said that, I also cannot contest the producer's prerogative to market a film to a certain audience, because at some point you kind of give up, because it ultimately is a business model which intends on profiteering.
We shouldn't be forced to make a choice in the marketing of what to strike with, the whether we should strike with the message or whether we should strike with what we have. I think people respond to something that they immediately engage with, so even if the message lands on them when they come in the theater, I think that will also serve the purpose. If they find ki, this is interesting, this is relatable, I want to go and see it, that much is, I feel, enough.
I was thinking that if I were Nikhil, who would I want my story to be told by? And I immediately thought of my sister, and that's why, that was actually the reason of calling it My Brother Nikhil and, not anything else. And because I wanted her to be there, though there are other voices, she's the primary narrator, and through her we get introduced to everyone else. And the whole discourse of why not My Lover Nikhil came in actually much later, when we were thinking of marketing and releasing, that a lot of people started suggesting that, Onir, why don't you call it My Lover Nikhil? It will create immediately so much of controversy, And my reasoning was, one, I don't want to create controversy. I want people to walk into the theater, watch the film, love Nikhil first, and then accept him.
With Thappad, I suppose it was a very bold move to take it by the horns, because A, we are not misleading anyone in that case. We are not making it about a hero, heroine, and then saying, it's about a social message.
That's one of the things I've been opposed to. That do not load a film with costs of marketing. But it has to be smart. It has to be done smartly. And spend that money on perhaps prolonging the shelf life of the film at the theaters. Find a way, pay the exhibitors for an extra week, for extra 2 weeks, have lesser theaters, spend the money on building word of mouth.
It just, it was in the news because of the fact that it had been banned. And of course, I did whatever I could, which is I responded to the media as much as I could, and I didn't respond to a lot. I could have done a lot more, which I didn't do because I felt some stuff I just didn't want to get into. So, and of course, when we got Balaji on board to distribute the film, we decided that but by then, like the attention, by the time I actually got the censor certificate, the conversation had already happened. So then we decided we will do something dramatic to, get people's attention again. Which is why we did like that kind of poster, and we spoke about what had happened and everything. I always feel it's nice if things are story-led and people discover, like what the film is saying, rather than saying, okay, go and watch this film because it's going to make you feel empowered. For instance, recently I just saw Gunjan Saxena and I really liked it. And I didn't feel that it was marketed in a way where, it made me feel I'm going to watch this film. I knew I'm watching a film about, someone who's a pioneer in her field, but it was really nice to see it, and I felt like you got so much, out of it. Whereas Thappad, I feel, for instance, it was very clear what the film was in terms of its messaging, and the film delivered.
It all really depends on various factors. Okay, today when you have an Ayushmann Khurrana, you can take the risk because he, as a star, has a certain following, right? Even if it was Akshay Kumar, they would have come. More people would have come. Okay, not for the Article 15, because most people don't know what is Article 15, but for the star, right? Secondly, I feel that it depends on what story you are telling. Taboos also have different layers, right? Today, when you're doing a film which is quote unquote taking up a topic of be it acid, like what was that, chapak or thappar. These are not taboos. Okay, these are controversial but not taboos. So there is a certain amount of people who are not like absolutely patriarchal, whatever, who will want to see these films, right? Women will want to see these films. So, it will be marketed that, okay, let's get them. Whereas when you're doing a film which is dealing with sexuality, especially be it gay or lesbian, okay, trans is more accepted. It's strange, but it is in a way more accepted because it's out there as the other. It's the other story. That's why a super deluxe will be a huge success. Okay, because it's not you and me. But the minute it's gay or lesbian, shit, it could be you or me, right? It makes you feel insecure because there is no unless it's portrayed like in some films. So that is a taboo. Watching that is a taboo because it might mean that shit, people will think that I'm gay if I go and watch this film.
And I feel many films, like, there's a lot of subtle messaging which you don't like. I feel Gully Boy, for instance, considering the times we live in, the fact that it was a film about a poor Muslim poor Muslim protagonist. And that's the story you're watching. So it doesn't matter that the marketing was not about him being, but in the kind of divided times we live in and the kind of, marginalization of the minority communities in India, I think it's phenomenal that it was, one of the most popular films of last year, and it had, a Muslim protagonist. So I feel like very often, but did they need to market that film like that? No, they marketed it on him being a hip hop, whatever, a rapper.
Because, it's me and Sanjay who do everything of the films. Actually, both the films could have had much wider role and impact if we had someone to help us in terms of marketing it, taking it to, schools, colleges for, dialogue. But that, then we had to choose between making films and marketing. And obviously, as a filmmaker, for me, making the film is much more attractive.
Independent cinema also serves a very important purpose. I mean, it's in a way its own social impact is that it challenges the mainstream by creating newer narratives, by introducing fresh talent. You get new talent, you get so like Rajkumar Rao. It sort of challenges the mainstream, and the mainstream won't be what it is without a vibrant independent scene. So we have to see its larger impact. You won't have an Abhay Deol without the independent films that he did. All the technicians, Rajiv Ravi, all the top cinematographers, editors, they all of them edit for a Yash Raj or a Dharma, top films, top filmmakers. Shimit Amin works with Ameera Nair.
People worldwide can be influenced by mainstream films. You can make people support a government blindly by making films that talk about the good things the government is making, and you can make the same people question the government in a responsible way by making films. About the choice that you make. Today, every festival director is directly reachable to anybody from India. So it is a choice that you have to make. If you want to make a film, like if you want to do it, then you decide the kind of films that you want to make. If you want to make it in the mainstream space, then try to make something like Asuran or Article 15. Put it in that space, or for that matter, Sairat also talks about an issue, but in a mainstream space, in a mainstream way, it says that. So, or you want to explore the other side. then try to do something like Visaran, and I wouldn't term Visaranai a proper offbeat film or a parallel film. It's made for mainstream, or it was made by a mainstream filmmaker.
I asked Anurag. Anurag Kashyap made his debut as a writer in my first film, Jayate. So Jayate happened just before Satya. So I told Anurag, I said, Anurag, it's payback time. I'm making this film, and people tell me that if I have your name on the film, I might get money. So he said, yeah, use my name if it helps you. So I'm always there, and I think we'll make a good film this time. So I used Anurag's name on the film. Having Anurag as a sort of guardian angel for the film, it helped. So Anurag he took a set of DVDs to Cameron Bailey, the artistic director of Toronto International Film Festival. So Cameron saw a lot of films. I mean, mine was not the only film. Anurag was like at that time the champion, the poster boy, everything of independent Indian cinema, him and Guneet. So they went with a box of DVDs, and so among those films, one of the films that was selected was Shahid. So my film got selected there. So that selection at Toronto sort of became a turning point, because the moment people got to know, my peers, the industry got to know that I had made a film first of all, and I had not really retired, and that the film was selected at Toronto, it just changed things for me. And that became like a platform. Having said that, it took, after Toronto, September, it premiered at Toronto, it took an entire year to find a studio to release the film. And it took Amir Khan to do that. Because we showed the film to Amir, Kiran watched the film, and they got Ronnie Screwvala and Zarina to watch the film with them. And I realized that Amir had an agenda. If it was a good film, he would sort of tell Ronnie that maybe this is a film to invest in.
அதையே சொல்றேன், ஒரு பறையர் மெஸ், ஒரு அருந்ததி மெஸ், இல்ல ஒரு பல்லர் மெஸ்ன்னு சொல்லிட்டு நான் அந்த பேரை வச்சுட்டு நான் வந்து ஒரு கடையை நான் வந்து ஓபன் பண்ண முடியுமான்னா, இப்போ கவுண்டர் மெஸ்ன்றது வந்து அவங்களோட பிரிவிலேஜ், அது ஒரு மூலதனமா மாறுது அவங்களுக்கு. அப்போ அந்த பேர் வந்து அவங்களுக்கு ஒரு பிரச்சனையே இல்லை. ஈவன் எல்லாரும் வந்து இப்போ அந்த கவுண்டர் மெஸ்ல வந்து சாப்பிடக்கூடிய அளவுக்கு அந்த ஊர்ல இருக்கிறவங்க எல்லாருமே உள்ள வந்து சாப்பிடுவாங்க அந்த இதுக்குள்ள. இப்ப நானும் போய் சாப்பிடலாம் அதுக்குள்ள. ஆனா இதே நான் ஒரு வந்து பறையர் மெஸ்ஸோ அருந்ததி மெஸ்ஸோ இல்ல வந்து பல்லர் மெஸ்ஸோ வைக்கிறப்போ ஏன் அதுக்குள்ள வருவாங்களா வரமாட்டாங்களா அப்படின்னு கேள்வி கேட்கிறப்போ, இங்க ஜாதி வந்து மிகப்பெரிய ஒரு வேலையை செய்யுது. அப்போ இந்த கடைக்குள்ள போகக்கூடாதுன்ற தீர்மானிக்கிறதுக்கு ஜாதி ஒரு முக்கிய தடையா இருக்கு. ஆனா இந்த கடைக்குள்ள போலான்றது இல்ல, ஜாதி ஒரு பிரச்சனையாவே இல்லை. அப்ப ஜாதி ஒரு சமூகத்துக்கு பிரிவிலேஜா இருக்கு, ஜாதி ஒரு சமூகத்துக்கு வந்து பிரச்சனையா இருக்கு. இப்ப இந்த மாதிரியான அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்டிங் குள்ள இருக்கிறப்போ இந்திய சினிமால, குறிப்பா தமிழ் சினிமாவில தலித் கதைகள் வந்து வணிக தளத்துல ஏற்றுக்கொள்ளப்படுவதற்கு இந்த மனநிலை மிக முக்கியமானதா நான் வந்து பாக்குறேன். அப்போ வணிக ரீதியா மக்கள் இதை அணுக மாட்டாங்க, வணிக ரீதியா மக்கள் இதை ஏற்றுக்கொள்ள மாட்டாங்க, வணிக ரீதியா இது வெற்றி அடையாது அப்படின்ற பயம் நான் தலித்துகளுக்கு சுலபமா இருந்தது. குறிப்பா அடகதி படத்துல வந்து என்னுடைய ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஓப்பனிங் இன்ட்ரோடக்ஷன் சீன்ல வந்து அம்பேத்கர் போட்டோ உள்ள வச்சிருந்தேன் நான் வீட்டுக்குள்ள. ப்ரொடியூசருடைய ஆள் ஒருத்தர் வந்து என்ன பண்ணாருன்னா வந்து அம்பேத்கர் போட்டோ வெளியே எடுத்துருங்கன்னு சொன்னாரு. ஏங்க அப்படின்னு சொன்னேன். இல்ல வெளியே எடுத்தாதான் ஷூட்டிங்கே நடக்கும் அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டாரு. நான் சொன்னேன், என் வீட்டுல அம்பேத்கர் படம், அண்ணா போட்டோ வச்சிருக்கிறேன், கலைஞர் போட்டோ வச்சிருக்கிறேன், எம்ஜிஆர் போட்டோ வச்சிருக்கிறேன், ஏன் அம்பேத்கர் போட்டோ மட்டும் எடுக்க சொல்றீங்க நான் கேட்டேன். நான் இல்ல டைரக்ட் ப்ரொடியூசர் சொல்லிட்டாரு அம்பேத்கர் போட்டோ எல்லாம் வைக்கக்கூடாதுன்னு சொல்லிட்டாரு வீட்டுக்குள்ள அப்படின்னா, ஏன் வைக்க கூடாதுன்னு நான் கேட்கிறேன். அவரு வந்து ஒரு இந்திய சட்டத்தை இயற்றியவர், இவ்வளவு பெரிய உன்னதமான தலைவர், அவர் ஏங்க நீங்க வந்து
அவரோட போட்டோ இருக்கு
இப்போ ஏன் எடுக்கிறீங்க நான் கேள்வி கேட்டதுக்கு அவங்க சொல்றாங்க, இல்ல மதுரையில ஒத்துக்க மாட்டாங்க, அப்புறம் தேட்டரே வந்து பத்தி எரியும் நாங்க. எனக்கு உண்மையிலேயே வந்து ஒரு பெரிய ஒரு அது நகைச்சுவை தான். அந்த டைம்ல எனக்கு பெரிய மனசு கஷ்டமா இருந்தது. ஆனா நான் வேற வழி இல்லாம நான் வந்து அந்த புகைப்படத்தை எடுத்துதான் அந்த படத்தை வந்து நான் வந்து ஷூட் பண்ணேன். ஆனா என்னுடைய மெட்ராஸ்ல நான் கிளைமேக்ஸ்ல அம்பேத்கர் போட்டோவோட தான் நான் முடிச்சிருப்பேன். கபாலில அம்பேத்கர் டைலாக் நான் யூஸ் பண்ணிருப்பேன். அதுக்கப்புறம் நான் வெளிப்படையாவே ஒர்க் பண்ண ஆரம்பிச்சேன்.
So it was really a test of my strength, I feel, like the fact that I could make this film. But I think my greatest test was after the film was made, and I really didn't know what will be the future of this film because we had no distribution, we had no money. and like I just couldn't. There was nothing. It was like there was no future because every studio I went to, I approached, they said they loved the film, but they were not interested in distributing it. And it was a very hard kind of journey. And then of course when it started, then we decided to send it for for getting the censor certificate, and then like it got banned. So I think it was really a struggle of, I think, a life and death struggle for me, because what happened to me anyway, I was on this thing because I was, it was so difficult to get distribution, and the more difficult it was to get distribution, the more determined I was. I was like, I have to get this film out. Like otherwise it would have just died in the cans, because then it became for me not just about this film, but I felt so challenged as a citizen, as a female citizen in India, as a woman in India, and I just felt like, how can it be that what I want to say somehow is not allowed, and what anyone else is saying in all kinds of like this, the hypocrisy of it, like the kind of sexism and the kind of patriarchy that the status quo perpetuates. It's fine. No one says anything, and because the moment like there's an alternative point of view, I'm being told to shut up. I think it was me as a filmmaker, me as a woman, me as a citizen. I think that was the real growing up moment for me. And already I was very determined that no matter what, I have to, even if I die, I literally used to tell myself, even if I die in the process, I'm going to get this film out.
A good film has its own journey. It finds its journey. So you look at a film like Udan, Vikram Motwani's film. When it was released, the business was a joke. And everybody said, oh, the film has failed, it's flopped. It's resonated. It, becomes one of the best films of the decade.
Yeah.
So it's resonated, it found its audience. A good film has a shelf life. It ensures that the director lives on in the hearts of people. And a bad film is, one, it does not have a shelf life, and it destroys the director's credibility. So I felt what was most important was that I make a credible film. Something that I will be proud of, that my family, my friends will watch and tell me it's good.
So you can train yourself. You don't need, of course, if you can go to an institute, fine. But if you can't, if you don't have that kind of money, you can self-train yourself. The desire has to drive you. And if it drives you, you will always find ways to do it. I always tell people that the reason I think I've survived so many years as an independent filmmaker is the drive to make a film and tell my stories is far greater than the hurdles, because those hurdles are self-chosen. No one forced me to make the kind of films I'm doing. I chose, so it is my job to find how to overcome them. And when you do it, it's so fulfilling.
இந்த அம்பலத்தான் அப்படின்ற மாதிரி ஒரு டயலாக் வரும். அவரே அந்த கல்ச்சர், அது இந்த ப்ரைடை அவராலே அவரால் எரேஸ் பண்ண முடியல. அவர் அதை காட்சிப்படுத்த விரும்புறாரு. ஆனா அந்த ப்ரைடை காட்சிப்படுத்த விரும்புற இந்த இடத்துல அந்த ப்ரைட்ல இருந்து ஒரு அப்ரெஸ்ட் இங்க இருக்குது, இதனால ஒரு அப்ரெஸ்ட் இருக்குது, இந்த லைஃபை நம்ம காட்டணும், அதோட உண்மைத்தன்மையை காட்டணும்ன்றதுல இங்க ஒரு பெரிய ஒரு செட்பேக் தான் இருக்குது அப்படின்னு நான் நினைச்சு, அதுக்கப்புறம் சரி நம்ம இந்த மாதிரியான சினிமாக்களை எடுக்கணும் அப்படின்னு நினைச்சேன். அந்த ஸ்பேஸ் இல்லாததுனால நான் வேற ஒரு மொழியை கையாண்டேன். இது ஒரு கமர்ஷியலா ஒரு காமன் சினிமாவுக்குள்ள நம்ம இந்த டிஸ்கஷனை எப்படி கிரியேட் பண்ணலாம் அப்படின்னு நான் நினைச்சேன். அப்படிதான் என்னுடைய திரைப்படங்கள் இன்னைக்கு அட்டகத்திலிருந்து அது கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சமா அப்படியே ஸ்ப்ரெட் ஆகி நான் இங்க வந்திருக்கிறேன். அதுக்கப்புறம் நான் நினைச்ச சினிமாக்களை தயாரிக்கிறதுக்கான ஒரு வாய்ப்பு எனக்கு கிடைச்சதுனால பரியரும் பெருமாள், குண்டுமாரி, அப்புறம் இப்போ சேத்துமான் ஒரு படம் தயாரிச்சிருக்கிறேன். அப்புறம் குதிரைவால் பண்ணியிருக்கேன். குதிரைவால்லாம் கம்ப்ளீட்டா மேஜிக்கல் ரியலிசம் மூவி. அது என்னன்னா முழுக்க முழுக்க தத்துவத்தை காட்சிப்படுத்துற மூவி. இப்போ அவன்லாம் ஆந்திரோ தாக்கோஸ்கியோட மிகப்பெரிய ஃபேன் அந்த டைரக்டர். அதனால அவரை மாதிரியே அவன் அவருடைய அந்த மாதிரி அவன் ட்ரை பண்ணியிருக்கான். ஒரு பிலிம் வேற எப்படி ஆடியன்ஸ் கிட்ட சொல்றது அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு அவன் ட்ரை பண்ணியிருக்காங்க. ஒரு கதையே இப்ப இந்த மாதிரியான ஒரு முயற்சிகளுக்கு இப்போ நம்ம கொஞ்சம் இறங்கி இருக்கிறோம் அப்படின்னு நான் நினைக்கிறேன். ஆக்சுவலி இதுதான் என்னுடைய கம்ப்ளீட் ஜேர்னி ஆக்சுவலி.